There is a moment, and most people only get it once, where retirement is yours and nobody else's yet. The decision has been made, you know your last day, but you have not told anyone. That window, quiet, private, a little surreal, is the most financially important stretch of time in your entire retirement. Not because of what you do with your money in that window, because of what you think through before the calendar fills up and the world has opinions about how you should be spending your time. Most people close that window too fast. They retire on a Friday, they post about it on Saturday, the texts come in, the dinners get scheduled, the trips start getting planned, and somewhere in all of that, the decisions that shape the next 30 years get made in the margins of a suddenly very full life. Today, I want to walk you through 10 things worth upgrading inside that quiet window. Before the celebration, before the announcements, before the world knows. Because the people who do this quietly, before the social pressure kicks in, they end up not just keeping more of their money, they end up feeling more confident about every decision that follows. And that confidence, it is not an accident. I've watched people retire for a long time now, and the thing I notice most is not what people do in retirement, it is when they do the thinking. There is a version of retirement where the structural decisions, the ones that affect taxes, income, coverage, who gets what, get made carefully with full attention before the noise starts. And there is a version where those same decisions get made reactively, after the first bill comes in, after the first tax return catches someone off guard, after something happens that nobody planned for. The difference between those two versions of retirement is not intelligence, it is not how much money someone saved, it is almost always timing. The quiet window, that stretch before retirement becomes public, is when the thinking is clearest. The calendar is still open, the external pressure has not arrived yet, and the decisions that will quietly shape the next 25 to 30 years can still be made with real focus. So let us use it. The first upgrade is your withdrawal strategy, and this one reshapes everything that comes after it. While you were working, the financial question was simple: save as much as you can, put it in the right places, let it grow. The moment you retire, that question flips completely. Now the question is, which account do I pull from, in what order, how much, and what does that choice do to my tax picture for the next 30 decades? Most people default to the traditional IRA because that is where most of the money sits. It feels like the logical place to start. But every dollar that comes out of that account creates taxable income, and that stacks with Social Security, and it affects Medicare premiums, and it quietly sets the tax tone for the next 30 years. Before you pull a single dollar in retirement, it is worth understanding which accounts you are spending from in year one, which years are your best window for Roth conversions, if that applies to you, and how to keep taxable income controlled while you are still in the lower brackets, before required minimum distributions begin forcing the issue at 73 or 75. This is one of those decisions that feels technical on the surface, but underneath it, what you're really doing is deciding what your retirement costs you in taxes for decades. The people who think through this before their first withdrawal tend to make better decisions for the next 30 years than the people who start pulling from whichever account is easiest to access. It is a small distinction at first. It compounds into something much larger. If you are retiring before 65, your employer coverage is ending. And this is not something you want to figure out after your last day. This is something you look into before it. Marketplace insurance through the Affordable Care Act offers premium subsidies based on your income. Those subsidies have been adjusted in recent years, and they are still meaningful for the right income structure. The withdrawal strategy you just built in Upgrade 1, it directly determines how much those subsidies are worth to you. With the right income structure, the savings over the gap years before Medicare can be significant, in some cases tens of thousands of dollars. With the wrong structure, those subsidies can disappear entirely. COBRA is available for most employers, but it tends to be expensive. In many situations, marketplace coverage with a managed income approach can produce a better financial outcome. The key word there is managed. You need to run the numbers before you retire, not after. This one is not complicated. It just requires knowing before you leave that the question exists. While you were working, tax planning largely meant maximizing your 401k contribution and maybe itemizing deductions. In retirement, the tax plan spans the next 25 to 30 years, and the decisions made in year one ripple forward into almost every year that follows. Bracket management, Roth conversions, if they make sense for you, capital gains harvesting, IRMAA exposure, that is the income-related Medicare surcharge, all of it starts from the baseline you set in your first year of retirement. Most people do not upgrade their tax plan until April when they file their first return and realize they could have done some things differently. But by then, the year's income is already settled. The upgrade here is to think in lifetime terms, not annual terms. Every withdrawal you take, every conversion, every income decision, those work best when you can see the full picture of where this is all going, not just where you are right now. This is not about being obsessive with taxes. It is about not being surprised by them. This one takes about 30 minutes. It costs nothing, and it is one of the highest impact actions on this list. Most people set their beneficiary designations when they first opened their retirement accounts, sometimes 20 or 30 years ago, and have not looked at them since. Here's what that designation does. It overrides your will, it overrides your trust. Whatever name is on that form is where the money goes, regardless of what you intended. An outdated form can send retirement assets to an ex-spouse. It can skip a child entirely. It can create a tax situation that your heirs were never prepared for. I think about a situation where someone passed away with an old retirement account designation that was never updated. The account ended up passing to minor grandchildren. What followed was a tax outcome significantly larger than it needed to be, complicated by court involvement that added months and unnecessary cost to an already difficult time. On the other side, someone who updated his designations just months before an unexpected death. The accounts moved cleanly to his two sons, no dispute, no delay, no unnecessary tax, just what he wanted, done the way he wanted it done. One form, completely different outcomes. Retiring is a natural moment to look at every designation you have and make sure it reflects your current life, your current family situation, and the tax implications for whoever will eventually inherit this money. Do it before you tell anyone you have retired. It belongs in the quiet window. Most people have a will, maybe a power of attorney, documents that were drafted when the kids were young and the financial picture looked very different. Those documents, in many cases, have not been touched since. Retiring changes your income sources, your account structure, your overall financial picture, and your estate documents need to reflect where you are right now, not where you were 15 or 20 years ago. I will be honest with you, this is the one that people know they need to do, keep meaning to do, and keep not doing. It is almost universal. Not because people do not care, I think it is because updating these documents makes certain things feel more real. But without current documents, decisions get made by default, by courts, by whoever has the loudest voice in the room during a difficult moment. Updating your will or trust, your healthcare directive, your power of attorney, it ensures that the people you trust are the ones with the legal authority to act, and that the instructions they are following are actually yours. Just get it done before the calendar fills up. This is exactly the kind of task that belongs in the quiet window, not because it is urgent in a way that feels immediate, but because once the noise starts, it keeps getting pushed to next year. The insurance you carried while working was built around your working life. Disability coverage protected your income, life insurance protected your dependents. The mix made sense at the time because of who was relying on it. Now the picture has changed. Disability insurance is no longer relevant once your earned income is gone. Life insurance may no longer be necessary if your spouse would be financially secure without it. Carrying premiums on policies that no longer serve a purpose is just an expense worth examining. At the same time, some coverage becomes more important, not less. Umbrella liability insurance, which protects your assets from a lawsuit, matters more in retirement when you have accumulated more to protect. Long-term care planning matters more now, too. An extended care event is one of the few things that can genuinely destabilize a well-built retirement plan. I will say, and this is just personal, not advice, my own umbrella insurance just roughly doubled in cost. I do not fully understand why yet, but I still think it's worth carrying. The right sizing here is the upgrade. Eliminate what no longer serves you, strengthen what does. While you are working, 3 to 6 months of emergency savings was usually enough. A paycheck was always coming. In retirement, cash needs to be thought about more deliberately. The starting point is a true emergency reserve, somewhere between 6 and 12 months of living expenses, in something stable and accessible. Not for normal spending, for the things that come out of nowhere, a medical cost, a home repair, something that falls outside the plan. Beyond that, if there are known expenses coming in the first 2 or 3 years, a car, a renovation, a major trip, that money needs to be identified and set aside separately before you start withdrawing from your investment accounts. Because if it is not, those expenses create unplanned investment sales, sometimes at exactly the wrong time. Having the right amount of cash clearly defined before you start spending keeps your withdrawal decisions intentional. You are pulling from the portfolio on your terms, not because something unexpected came up and now you need to react. This is not about holding excessive cash. It's about making sure your investment portfolio can do its job without being interrupted by short-term needs. Most people enter retirement with a rough idea of what they spend, and a rough idea is not enough for a 25-year withdrawal plan. Every dollar of spending in retirement comes from somewhere, and where it comes from determines your tax bill. An estimate built around a general sense of your lifestyle, it can lead to over-withdrawing from the wrong accounts or simply pulling more than the plan can sustain over time. The upgrade here is to track your actual spending for the first 3 to 6 months of retirement, or ideally, to start tracking before you retire so you arrive with a real number already in hand. Some people call this rehearsing retirement. I think that's a good way to describe it. You are finding out what your life actually costs, not what you thought it would cost. The people who get specific about this early tend to make better decisions all year round. The ones who do not, I have noticed, often end up on unintended spending patterns that compound quietly for a while before anyone catches them. Your withdrawal plan is only as good as the number it's built around. Make the number real. Most people have looked at their Social Security statement and picked a claiming age based on the monthly benefit shown. That is not the same thing as having a Social Security strategy. The right claiming age depends on how your benefit interacts with your withdrawal plan, your Roth conversion window, your IRMA exposure, and how Social Security itself gets taxed, which is based on something called provisional income. It's the calculation that determines how much of your benefit is taxable each year. Claiming at the wrong time does not just affect your monthly check, it affects your tax bill for years. And what I find is that most people optimize for the wrong thing entirely. The question is not which age produces the largest monthly number. The question is which age creates the least long-term tax damage and the most flexibility. For most people, those two questions have very different answers. Running an analysis before you start spending, before you have committed to a withdrawal pattern that your claiming decision now has to work around, gives you the clarity to build everything together. The withdrawal plan, the conversion window, the claiming age, they work best when they are built as one picture, not 3 separate decisions made at 3 separate times. The people who get this right early lock in an outcome they may never fully be able to measure because you can never see the road not taken. but I have sat with enough people on both sides of this decision to know that timing matters more than most people realize when they are first looking at that statement. This is the one I want to spend a little more time on, because I personally think this is the conversation that most couples avoid, not because they do not care, but because they care too much. It is easier not to look. Here is what the math does by default when one spouse passes away and nobody ran the numbers in advance. The surviving spouse loses one Social Security benefit. The household drops to a single income stream from what was two, and the tax brackets, which were calculated for a married couple filing jointly, now compress to single filer rates. On the exact same income, more of it gets taxed. Required minimum distributions continue on the full traditional balance, Social Security taxation thresholds drop, IRMMA surcharges, those Medicare income-related premiums, hit earlier and harder on a single filer. The surviving spouse can end up paying a higher effective tax rate than the couple ever paid together, on less money, with one fewer person in the household. If the traditional IRA balance is large, this is not a minor inconvenience. It is a tax problem that can last 15 to 20 years. And it is not a planning failure in the sense that someone did something wrong. It is what the math does by default when nobody looked at it in advance. For many couples, this is one of the most concrete arguments for accelerating Roth conversions early, while both spouses are alive, while the brackets are wider, while there is still time to reshape the balance that the surviving spouse will eventually carry alone. I know some people will hear this and think it does not apply to them, or that it's too far away to worry about. And maybe, for some situations, the scale of the problem is smaller. But the one thing I would ask is this: look at it, model it, see what the numbers actually show before deciding it's not worth addressing. Because if there is something worth doing, and for many people there is, the time to do it is while both spouses are here and the window is still open. I said at the beginning that this window is the most financially important stretch of time in your entire retirement. Not because the decisions themselves are complicated, most of them are not, because of when they happen. The moment retirement becomes public, the calendar fills, the trips get planned, family shows up with needs, dinners and celebrations and small spending decisions start happening before the structure has been put in place. And I want to be clear, that is not a bad thing. That is retirement being what it is supposed to be: full, connected, alive. But the structural decisions, the ones that shape 25 or 30 years of income, taxes, coverage, and what gets left behind, those decisions deserve the clarity of quiet. They deserve the version of you that has not yet been pulled in 7 directions, the version that still has the space to think slowly, carefully, without the pressure of a calendar that suddenly has no empty days. This is not about hiding from your retirement. It is not about delaying the celebration. It is about earning the celebration, about knowing that before the world showed up, you gave yourself the time to get the important things right. The right decision depends on your numbers, not someone else's situation. This may not apply to every item on this list for every person watching. Your specific circumstances matter more than any general framework. But if even a few of these give you something worth looking at before your quiet window closes, that is worth more than it might feel like right now. Here's what I know after watching people move through this transition for a long time. The ones who do this quietly, who give themselves the space before the announcements, they arrive at their first year of retirement with something that is hard to describe and impossible to manufacture later. It is not certainty. Nobody gets certainty. It's just the feeling of having looked at the thing carefully, having asked the questions when there was still time to answer them, having made the decisions that were theirs to make before everyone else had an opinion about what their retirement should look like. That feeling carries. It shapes how they spend, how they give, how they make decisions for the next 20 or 30 years. The window is quiet for a reason. Use it. This is not about right or wrong. It's about understanding your own trade-offs. Every financial situation is different, and the right path depends on your specific numbers, not a general list. If this one helped you see something differently, that is all I ever hope for. Give it a like if it was worth your time. And if someone you care about is figuring out retirement right now, share this with them. I'll see you next one.